5 years before Maya Thompson ever stepped foot in Seoul. Love almost destroyed an empire. The city glittered that night. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Kong penthouse overlooking the Han River, the lights of Seoul shimmered like scattered diamonds. Inside, the elite of Korea's business world gathered beneath crystal chandeliers, champagne glasses clinking in celebration. At 29, Adrien Kong was the youngest tech billionaire in Asia, founder of Kong Global, the genius who built a cybersecurity empire from nothing but code and obsession. And tonight was supposed to be perfect. The press had already speculated. The headlines were ready. Billionaire genius to announce engagement. Standing near the balcony doors was the woman everyone believed would become Mrs. Kong. Elegant, intelligent, charming. She had been by his side for 3 years. Investors adored her. The media loved her. Adrian loved her. Or, at least, he thought he did. His assistant approached quietly, pale. "Sir, you need to see this. Now." Annoyed, Adrian stepped into his private study. The music and laughter faded behind the heavy doors. A tablet was placed in his hand. Emails. Encrypted transfers. Private research files from Kong Global, confidential prototypes worth billions, sent directly to their biggest competitor. His jaw tightened. The sender's name appeared at the bottom of every thread. Her. At first, his mind rejected it. There had to be a mistake. A hack. A forgery. But then security footage appeared on screen, clear as daylight. She met privately with his rival's executives. Smiling. Shaking hands. Accepting a black envelope. Not just corporate betrayal. Calculated deception. Every kiss. Every whispered, "I believe in you." Every promise. Strategic. The sound that escaped his chest wasn't anger. It was something colder. Something breaking. He walked back into the ballroom slowly. The guests parted for him instinctively. Cameras lifted. Anticipation buzzed in the air. She saw his expression, and for the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. "Adrien, what's wrong?" she asked softly, reaching for him. He stepped back. That single movement echoed louder than any shout. Without raising his voice, he said, "The deal was profitable, I hope." Her face drained of color. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. He projected the evidence onto the massive screen behind them. Gasps. Shock. Phones recording. She tried to explain something about security, about misunderstandings, about protecting their future. But Adrien heard nothing. All he saw was weakness, his weakness. He had trusted someone inside the fortress. And she had opened the gates. The next morning, headlines exploded across Seoul. Kong Global Engagement Scandal. Billionaire betrayed. Stock prices dipped. Rival companies circled like sharks. But Adrien didn't crumble. He retaliated. Within weeks, legal teams dismantled the competitor responsible. Contracts were terminated. Executives were replaced. Security protocols were rebuilt. He worked 20-hour days. He stopped attending social events. He stopped smiling in interviews. He stopped believing in anything that couldn't be measured in profit margins. Women were removed from his executive inner circle, not out of hatred, but control. Control meant safety. Safety meant no betrayal. One rainy evening, months later, Adrien stood alone in his office tower in Gangnam, staring down at the endless traffic below. The world saw him as stronger than ever. They didn't see the silence in his penthouse. They didn't see the untouched side of his bed. They didn't see the way he replayed every warning sign he ignored. His reflection in the glass looked unrecognizable. Colder. Sharper. Untouchable. He poured a glass of whiskey, but didn't drink it. Instead, he made a vow, not to the media, not to the board. To himself. Never again. No woman will ever have access to my heart. Emotion is liability. Love is weakness. The vow hardened into identity. Adrien Kong became a man of precision, of power, of emotional distance. For 5 years, no one broke through the ice. Not models. Not heiresses. Not political daughters seeking alliances. He built an empire with no room for softness. And it worked. Until one ordinary morning, when a scholarship student with rain in her curls and fire in her voice would look up at him without fear. And everything he buried would begin to thaw. Maya Thompson did not come to Seoul to fall in love. She came to win. 2 suitcases, 1 scholarship letter, and a promise to her mother back in Atlanta. I won't come back the same. I'll come back greater. Getting accepted into Seoul National University wasn't luck. It was sleepless nights, debate championships, leadership programs, and a brain that moved faster than most rooms could handle. Being a black woman in a foreign country didn't intimidate her. It sharpened her. She noticed the stares at first, curious, sometimes skeptical. Professors mispronounced her name. Students whispered. But Maya carried herself like someone who belonged everywhere she stood. Because she did. She worked part-time at a cafe near campus, studied global market trends past midnight, and built business proposals most graduate students couldn't conceptualize. The innovation competition at Kong Global wasn't optional. It was strategic. Winning meant visibility, connections, leverage, and maybe, just maybe, a seat at tables people like her were rarely invited to. The rainy morning. The morning of the competition, rain poured relentlessly over Gangnam's skyline. Maya arrived 20 minutes early, heels clicking confidently across the marble lobby of Kong Global headquarters. The building was intimidating, steel, glass, silence. Billion-dollar silence. She checked her reflection in the glossy wall panel. Professional. Composed. Focused. Then it happened. Her heel caught the slick entrance tile. Her presentation folder slipped from her grip. Laptop. Notes. Tablet. Everything scattered across the pristine floor. A few employees glanced down but kept walking. Until the atmosphere shifted. You don't need to see him to know power just entered the room. The air changes. Conversations lower. Spine straighten. Expensive Italian shoes stopped inches from her fallen tablet. Polished. Immaculate. She looked up slowly. Adrien Kong. Tall. Sharp jaw. Expression unreadable. Dark tailored suit cut to perfection. The kind of man who looked like he didn't waste seconds or mercy. He stared down at her materials without bending. Security guards stood at a distance. Executives hovered near elevators. No one moved. Maya held his gaze, not long enough to be disrespectful, not short enough to seem intimidated. Are you going to keep staring? She said calmly. Or help me pick this up? A ripple of silent shock passed through the lobby. No one spoke to Adrien Kong that way. For 5 years, women lowered their voices around him, softened themselves, adjusted. This one didn't. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, recognition. Without breaking eye contact, he crouched and picked up her tablet. Their fingers brushed for a fraction of a second as he handed it back. Her hand was warm. Steady. Be careful, he said flatly. I usually am, she replied. The floor's just dramatic. A faint pause. Almost a reaction. Then the elevator doors opened, and he walked away without another word. But as they closed, his gaze didn't leave her. The presentation. Inside the competition hall, Maya didn't think about him. She thought about opportunity. When her turn came, she stepped forward with quiet confidence. Her proposal wasn't small. It wasn't safe. It was visionary. She outlined Kong Global's potential expansion into emerging African tech markets, cybersecurity infrastructure partnerships, digital banking collaborations, localized AI development. She projected data, projected revenue growth curves, projected risk analysis. The room shifted from polite interest to genuine attention. Then Adrien interrupted. Emerging markets are unstable, he said coolly. Political risks. Currency volatility. Infrastructure gaps. His voice carried authority without volume. Many students would shrink. Maya didn't. Emerging doesn't mean unstable, she responded smoothly. It means underestimated. A murmur in the room. She stepped closer to the digital screen. Companies that enter early define the infrastructure. They don't wait for perfection. They build it. Silence. Board members exchanged glances. Adrien studied her like a puzzle. Emotion doesn't scale markets, he said. She tilted her head slightly. Neither does arrogance. The air snapped tight. Someone's pen dropped. A female judge inhaled sharply. But Maya didn't say it with attitude. She said it with truth. And Adrien Kong, a man who despised emotional unpredictability, felt something dangerously close to admiration. The private meeting. Hours later, she was summoned to his office. The top floor. The view stretched endlessly over the Han River. Minimalist design. Clean lines. No photographs. No personal warmth. Adrien stood by the window when she entered. "I don't hire liabilities," he said without turning. "I'm not applying for a job," Maya replied, setting her portfolio neatly on the desk. "I'm building partnerships." That made him turn. She didn't stutter, didn't fidget, didn't flatter. "Do you always speak to executives this directly?" he asked. "Do they always assume I need to impress them?" she countered. A dangerous conversation. One he should have ended. Instead, he asked, "Why Kong Global?" She didn't hesitate. "Because you lead with strategy, not emotion. Because your competitors are reactive. And because if you expand globally without cultural intelligence, you'll lose long-term leverage." He blinked once. Most people praised him. She critiqued him. And somehow he didn't feel attacked. He felt engaged. For the first time in years, a conversation wasn't calculated flirtation or manipulation. It was intellectual combat. Stimulating. Alive. The decision. 2 days later, HR sent her an offer. 6-month strategic consulting internship. Competitive salary. Direct reporting line to executive leadership. And a note signed personally by Adrien Kong. "Prove your projections." She read it twice. Not because of the opportunity. Because of the challenge. Across the city, in his silent penthouse, Adrien poured a glass of whiskey again. And this time, he actually drank it. He told himself he hired her for business reasons. For innovation. For market expansion. It had nothing to do with the way she looked at him. Not impressed, not afraid. It had nothing to do with the warmth of her hand when their fingers brushed. It had nothing to do with the fact that, for the first time in 5 years, he replayed a woman's voice in his mind before sleep. He had built walls of ice. But somewhere beneath them, a small crack had formed, and Adrien Kong didn't yet realize. The scholarship girl wasn't going to ask permission to melt them. The first day Maya Thompson walked in as an official consultant at Kong Global, the temperature of the executive floor seemed to drop. Not because of her. Because of him. Adrien Kong did not blur professional lines. He did not mentor personally. He did not invest attention where it wasn't strategically profitable. Yet somehow, Maya Thompson's name now appeared directly under his review column. Whispers moved faster than elevators. She challenged him in public. She lasted longer than 5 minutes in his office. She must be special. Maya ignored it all. She wore a tailored navy suit, natural curls pulled into a sleek low bun, minimal makeup, posture sharp. Not flashy. Not submissive. Intentional. She wasn't here to be liked. She was here to be respected. The first strategy meeting. The boardroom on the 37th floor overlooked the Han River. The table was a single slab of dark wood polished to perfection. 12 executives. 12 screens. 12 opinions that usually aligned with Adrien Kong. Maya sat at the far end. Deliberately. She wanted to observe before she disrupted. The topic: international expansion priorities. Japan. Singapore. Germany. Safe. Predictable. Saturated. Adrien stood near the head of the table, hands loosely clasped behind him, voice calm but commanding. "We expand where regulatory frameworks are stable and ROI is measurable within 18 months. Heads nodded. Predictable. Then he looked at her. "Ms. Thompson, your counter-strategy." The room shifted subtly. She stood, connected her tablet to the screen, and her presentation illuminated the wall. Africa. Specifically, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, South Africa. Several executives stiffened. One cleared his throat. "Those markets are complicated." Maya didn't miss the undertone. "Complicated is profitable," she replied evenly. She moved through data, mobile banking penetration rates, cybersecurity infrastructure gaps, government tech initiatives, youth population growth statistics. Whoever builds digital security infrastructure there first will own market loyalty for decades. A senior executive leaned forward. Political instability is decreasing in targeted innovation hubs, she countered smoothly. Risk is manageable with localized partnerships. Kong Global doesn't lose because of risk. It loses because of hesitation. Silence. Adrian's gaze never left her. Emotion doesn't scale markets, he said again, testing her. She met his eyes directly. This isn't emotion. This is foresight. The tension thickened, not hostile. Electric. For the first time in years, someone wasn't agreeing with Adrien Kong out of fear or loyalty. She was challenging him because she believed she was right. And she wasn't reckless. She was prepared. The private confrontation. After the meeting, Adrien called her into his office again. The door closed with quiet finality. You undermine authority in front of executives, he said. Her expression remained calm. I present alternative strategy. That's why you hired me. He walked closer, not threatening but intentional. Confidence without experience can be dangerous. And experience without evolution can be expensive, she replied. His jaw tightened. He should have dismissed her, corrected her, reminded her who he was. Instead, he asked, why are you so certain? There it was. Not ego. Curiosity. She stepped toward the window, looking out over Seoul's skyline. Because I come from a place global corporations ignored for decades. And now they're scrambling to enter those same markets. I've studied patterns. I've lived the consequences of underinvestment. Opportunity always looks unstable to the people who don't understand it. Her voice softened slightly. You built your empire by seeing what others dismissed. That landed. Harder than any challenge. For a moment, the billionaire who vowed never to trust emotion felt something unfamiliar. Alignment. You speak like you've already succeeded, he said quietly. I plan to, she answered. No hesitation. No flirtation. Just certainty. The spark beneath the clash. Over the next weeks, their professional battles became routine. He dissected her projections. She refined them. He tested her under pressure. She never crumbled. He pushed harder. She pushed back smarter. Late nights turned into data sessions at midnight. Coffee cups stacked beside financial reports. Strategic debates that lasted hours. And somewhere between argument and agreement, admiration formed. Not soft admiration. Sharp admiration. The kind forged in challenge. One evening, as she gathered her things after another intense review session, Adrien asked, without looking up, why don't you ever try to impress me? She paused. Because I don't need to. He looked up then. Most people wanted something from him. Status. Access. Wealth. Validation. She wanted none of it. She wanted excellence. And somehow, that unsettled him more than betrayal ever had. The line he didn't expect. A week later, during another board discussion, one executive made a careless remark. Perhaps Ms. Thompson is overambitious for someone still in school. The implication hung heavy. Maya's expression didn't change, but Adrien noticed the slight tightening of her fingers around her pen. Before she could respond, Adrien spoke. If she were overambitious, she would be sitting in your chair. The room went silent. The executive immediately straightened. Maya blinked once. That was the first time he defended her publicly. Not because he felt protective. He told himself it was about competence. Standards. But when the meeting ended, she lingered behind. You didn't have to do that, she said. I don't tolerate incompetence, he replied. She studied him. That wasn't incompetence. Their eyes locked. For a fraction of a second, the tension shifted from professional to something deeper. He stepped back first. Always controlled. Always guarded. Focus on your proposal revisions, he said coolly. But when she left, he remained standing in the empty boardroom long after the door closed. This was dangerous. Not because she was manipulating him, but because she wasn't. She wasn't playing a game. She wasn't chasing his approval. She challenged his mind. And worse, she was slowly, quietly earning his respect. And Adrien Kong did not know how to separate respect from something far more powerful. The clash wasn't ending. It was evolving. And the ice around his heart was no longer solid. By the third month of Maya's internship, something had shifted at Kong Global. Not publicly. Publicly, Adrien Kong was still the same controlled, precise billionaire the world knew. But privately, the rhythm of his days had begun to revolve around her presence. He noticed when she arrived. He noticed when she stayed late. He noticed when she skipped lunch because she was too focused on refining projections. He told himself it was leadership awareness. It wasn't. The man behind the glass. One evening, long after most employees had left, Maya walked past the executive offices and saw the lights still on inside Adrian's office. Through the glass walls, he stood alone, jacket removed, sleeves rolled slightly at the forearms, staring at the skyline of Seoul. He looked powerful, but not peaceful. She hesitated before knocking lightly. "You're still here," she said. He didn't turn immediately. "So are you. I'm finalizing the regional risk matrix." A pause. "You already overprepared." That almost sounded like praise. She stepped inside. The office felt colder at night. All steel, marble, and discipline. No photos. No warmth. No evidence that a human being lived beyond performance. "Why don't you ever go home?" she asked casually. He finally turned. "Home is efficient." "That's not what I asked." Their eyes held. For a moment, he looked like he might dismiss her question. Instead, he surprised both of them. "When you build something from nothing," he said quietly, "you don't step away from it." That's not an answer either. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable. Heavy. "You're not afraid of me," he observed. She shrugged lightly. "You're not as intimidating as you try to be." That almost made him smile. The storm. 2 weeks later, Seoul was hit by one of the heaviest storms of the season. Rain hammered against the glass exterior of Kong Global's tower. Lightning streaked across the sky. The wind howled loud enough to rattle the upper floors. Most employees had already left early. Only a handful remained, including Adrien and Maya. She was in the elevator heading down when the lights flickered. Then went out. The elevator jerked to a halt. Darkness swallowed the space. For a moment, there was only the sound of rain and the hum of emergency power systems struggling to engage. Maya inhaled slowly. "Of course," she muttered. A second later, a calm voice spoke in the darkness. "You're not alone." Her heart jumped before she recognized it. Adrien. Emergency lighting flickered on dimly, casting a soft amber glow inside the confined space. He stood opposite her, closer than they had ever been without a boardroom table between them. The proximity felt different. No glass walls. No titles. Just two people trapped between floors. "Do you control the weather too?" she asked lightly. "Not yet," he replied. The elevator remained still. Minutes passed. The silence wasn't professional anymore. It was personal. She leaned back against the wall. "You hate not being in control, don't you?" His jaw tightened slightly. Control prevents failure. Or prevents vulnerability. The word landed between them. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating his face, and for a split second, the guarded mask slipped. "Vulnerability is how you get betrayed," he said quietly. There it was. The wound. Not the CEO. The man. She softened, but not with pity. "With the wrong person," she said gently. His eyes lifted to hers. "You speak like you've never been betrayed." "I have," she replied. "But I refuse to let someone else's mistake rewrite who I am." He swallowed, not visibly, but internally. "Trust is expensive," he murmured. "For you?" she asked softly. "Or for the people who broke it?" The question hit deeper than any boardroom challenge. Because the truth? He had built walls so high that no one could hurt him again. But no one could reach him either. Rain pounded harder outside. The elevator lights flickered again. In the dimness, their breathing was almost synchronized. "You're different," he admitted before he could stop himself. She held his gaze steadily. Different how? You don't want anything from me. That's not true, she said quietly. His pulse shifted. I want you to stop hiding behind power.
The air changed.
That wasn't flirtation. That was confrontation of the soul. For 5 years, women had approached him with admiration, calculation, attraction, or fear. No one had approached him with truth. The elevator suddenly jolted back to life. Movement resumed. The spell broke. They stepped apart automatically, restoring professional distance. When the doors opened in the lobby, reality rushed back in. Employees, security, status. But something irreversible had happened. The aftermath. The next morning, things felt different. Their conversations were still sharp. Their debates still intense. But beneath every exchange, there was awareness. He began asking about her family in Atlanta. She began noticing how rarely he mentioned his own. He scheduled meetings later than necessary. She stayed longer than required. One evening, as she packed her things, he spoke without looking up from his desk.
Dinner.
She paused. Is that an order?
No.
A small beat. An invitation. She studied him carefully. Adrien Kong did not invite people into his personal time. Especially not women. Especially not after what he'd been through. Strictly strategic conversation? She asked. His gaze lifted slowly. We'll see. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was more dangerous than that. It was the beginning of choice. And for a man who vowed never to let a woman close again, choosing to sit across from her without walls might be the bravest thing he had done in 5 years. The ice hadn't shattered, but it was cracking. And neither of them could pretend they didn't hear it. Just when Adrien Kong began allowing himself to feel again, his past decided to remind him why he stopped. It started with a headline. On a Monday morning, financial news platforms across Seoul exploded with photos from an elite engagement gala hosted at the luxurious the Shilla Seoul. At the center of every image, his ex-fiancée, radiant, elegant, smiling beside Adrien's longtime corporate rival, the CEO of Myri Dynamics. The caption beneath the viral photos read, Power Couple of the Year, Tech Rivalry Turns Personal.
It was strategic.
Calculated.
Pull.
By noon, speculation filled every business forum. Was she always aligned with the rival company? Did Adrien lose her because he was emotionally unavailable? Was Kong Global still vulnerable to insider betrayal? Adrien didn't react publicly. He never did. But when he walked into the executive meeting that morning, there was something darker in his composure. Colder than usual. The first cut. Maya noticed immediately. She had learned to read the subtle shifts, the tightening of his jaw, the sharper precision in his tone. During the meeting, an executive made an offhand comment. Sir, perhaps this engagement announcement signals a formal alliance between Myri and your former. Finish that sentence, Adrien said calmly. The executive swallowed. Former fiancé.
Silence.
Adrien's expression remained unreadable. Personal matters have no relevance to corporate strategy, he said flatly. Refocus. The meeting resumed, but the energy was unsettled. And outside that boardroom, the storm was growing louder. The target shifts. By evening, a new rumor began circulating. Paparazzi photos of Adrien and Maya leaving Kong Global together after a late strategy session surfaced online. The headline changed. Betrayed billionaire abounds with foreign student. Scholarship girl captures Kang's attention. The comment sections were brutal. Gold digger. Clout chaser. Temporary distraction. Intern romance scandal. Maya stared at her phone in disbelief. She had worked too hard to be reduced to a rumor. Her phone buzzed again, a message from a classmate. Are you actually dating him? Another buzz. Careful. You don't want to be another headline. She locked her screen. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, she felt small. Not because the rumors were true, but because her identity, her work, was being erased. Adrien's instinct. Adrien saw the headlines too. And his first instinct wasn't anger at the media. It was distance. Distance meant protection. Distance meant control. He called her into his office. She entered calmly, but He noticed the tightness in her posture. "This is escalating unnecessarily," he said. "You think," she replied coolly. He ignored the edge in her voice. "You will no longer attend late meetings with me. Communication goes through department heads. It reduces exposure." There it was. The wall. Again. Her eyes sharpened. "You're pushing me away." "I'm preventing damage." "To who?" she asked. Silence. "To your company?" she pressed. "To you," he said, almost too quickly. She blinked once. "I didn't ask you to protect me. Public scrutiny destroys reputations. I built mine before I met you." That landed
Hard.
"You think I can't handle rumors?" she continued. "You think I don't know what it means to be underestimated? To be judged before I open my mouth?" His expression hardened. "You don't understand the scale of this. And you don't understand that I'm not fragile." The air between them turned sharp. He wasn't trying to belittle her. He was terrified. Terrified of history repeating. Terrified that letting her close would end in another public humiliation. Terrified that caring again would cost him everything. "You're getting too close," he said finally. Not cold. Wounded. Her breath caught. "I'm not afraid of your past," she said quietly. "But I won't fight ghosts for you." The words settled like finality. She placed her access badge on his desk. "My internship ends in 2 weeks. Let's keep this professional." And she walked out. This time, he didn't stop her. The silence. The next days were unbearable. No more late-night debates. No more quiet glances across conference tables. She addressed him formally in meetings. "Mr. Kong." He responded in kind. "Ms. Thompson." Every interaction was precise, controlled, distant, and it hurt more than betrayal ever had. Because betrayal had come from deception. This pain came from truth. One evening, Adrien found himself staring at the city lights again from his penthouse. The same skyline, the same silence. But something was different. 5 years ago, he chose control over vulnerability. Now he was doing it again. And this time, he knew exactly what he was losing. His phone buzzed. A new article. His ex-fiancée had given an interview implying that Adrien was emotionally incapable of partnership. The media ran with it. Is Kong still broken? He exhaled slowly.
For years, he didn't care what they said.
But now, he cared what she thought. And she was walking away. Not because she betrayed him, but because he didn't trust her enough to stay. The realization. The following morning, Maya presented her final strategic revision to the board. Her voice was steady, her data flawless, her presence powerful. When she finished, the board applauded. Adrien didn't. He simply watched her. And for the first time in 5 years, fear wasn't about corporate sabotage. It was about losing someone real. Because unlike his ex, Maya had never lied to him, never manipulated him, never asked for anything but respect. And he had responded with walls. As she gathered her files to leave the room, he said her name quietly. "Maya." She paused. "Yes, Mr. Kong?" The formality hurt. More than headlines. More than betrayal. But he said nothing else. Because vulnerability, real vulnerability, requires timing. And he wasn't ready yet. But he was close. Closer than he had ever been. And the ghosts of his past were no longer the biggest threat. His pride was. The attack came quietly. Not with explosions. Not with headlines. But with numbers. On a Thursday morning, Kong Global stock began to fall. At first, it looked like routine volatility. By noon, it wasn't. A financial report surfaced anonymously online, alleging that Kong Global had manipulated offshore accounts to inflate quarterly projections before its global expansion announcement. Within hours, regulatory agencies requested documentation. Investors panicked. News anchors across Seoul dissected the alleged irregularities in real time. By evening, Kong Global had lost billions in market value. And the boardroom felt like a war zone. The accusation. "Adrien, this doesn't look accidental," one board member said grimly. Another added, "The documents are too detailed. Someone had access." 5 years ago, betrayal destroyed his engagement. Now it threatened his empire. Adrien stood at the head of the table, expression carved from stone. "I did not authorize any manipulation," he said evenly. But doubt had already entered the room. "Regulators will freeze our international expansion if this escalates," someone warned. That expansion. The African strategy proposal. Maya's project. The room fell silent at the unspoken implication. Adrien felt it. The weight. The suspicion. He didn't defend her. Not yet. He needed facts. And facts were disappearing under layers of fabricated data. Maya's instinct. Maya wasn't in the boardroom when the crisis erupted. She was in the strategy department reviewing expansion projections when her phone exploded with notifications. Kong Global under investigation. Market manipulation. CEO under scrutiny. Her stomach tightened. She opened the leaked financial documents. And something didn't sit right. The formatting was perfect. Too perfect. The timestamps were aligned with internal reporting systems, but one column's metadata format was inconsistent.
Small.
Easy to miss. But she had built the regional projection models herself. And she knew how Kong Global coded internal files. This wasn't just fraud. It was planted. The isolation. Meanwhile, Adrien faced regulators and media scrutiny alone. Cameras flashed outside Kong Global headquarters. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you falsify reports? Is this retaliation against your rival? Are you stepping down?" His rival CEO gave a carefully neutral interview implying concern about ethical transparency in today's corporate environment. Calculated. Strategic. Familiar. Adrien recognized the pattern. But recognition without proof meant nothing. That night, he sat alone in his office again. Storm clouds gathered over Seoul. 5 years ago, betrayal came from someone he loved. Now, the board doubted him. Investors hesitated. Trust, once broken, never fully returns. He closed his eyes briefly. And for the first time, since the scandal broke, he thought of Maya. He had pushed her away to protect her. And now he was fighting alone again. The return. A knock came at his office door near midnight. He didn't respond. It opened anyway. Maya. She walked in with her laptop and a stack of printed documents. "I think I know what happened," she said. He looked up slowly. "You shouldn't be here," he replied automatically. She ignored that. "The leak is fabricated. The metadata structure in the offshore files doesn't match Kong Global's internal coding standards." He stood. "Explain." She walked to his screen, connecting her laptop. The timestamps were manually reconstructed to mirror your reporting cycles. But whoever did it used a different algorithm for currency conversion rounding. Kong Global rounds at 4 decimals. These are at 6. Silence filled the office. She continued. "It's subtle, but consistent. And the routing path of the leak traces through a proxy server owned by Myri Dynamics' overseas subsidiary." There it was. The ghost of the rival. Adrien stepped closer to the screen. "You're certain?" "Yes." No hesitation. No doubt. Not once did she ask for credit. Not once did she hesitate because he pushed her away days earlier. "You could have stayed out of this," he said quietly. "I don't abandon what I build," she replied. The words struck deeper than she intended. Because he had. He abandoned closeness before it could hurt him. She hadn't. The emergency board meeting. The next morning, the board reconvened under crisis conditions. Regulators were prepared to escalate the investigation. Investors demanded reassurance. Adrien entered the room with Maya at his side. A subtle shift rippled through the executives. He didn't introduce her. He didn't distance himself. He simply said, "Present." Maya stood tall.
Calm. Precise.
She walked the board step by step through the inconsistencies, timestamp manipulation, rounding anomalies, server routing patterns. She projected technical comparisons between authentic Kong Global files and the leaked documents. By the end, there was no room for doubt. It wasn't internal fraud. It was corporate sabotage.
And it was expertly designed.
But not expertly enough. The room erupted in low murmurs. One board member leaned back slowly. "You saved us from a regulatory disaster." Maya didn't smile. I protected the integrity of the strategy. Adrien watched her, not as a CEO assessing performance, but as a man recognizing loyalty. Not blind loyalty. Earned loyalty. The choice. That evening, regulators announced a formal investigation into Myri Dynamics for attempted market manipulation. Kong Global's stock stabilized. Crisis contained. Expansion preserved. Maya returned to her office quietly to pack her belongings. Her internship officially ended that day. She placed her notebooks carefully into her bag. No drama. No celebration. Just transition. A soft knock came at her door. She knew who it was before turning. Adrien stood there, without his jacket, without his usual corporate armor. "Are you leaving?" he asked. "My contract is complete," she said gently. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was honest. "I was wrong," he said. She looked up. "I thought distance would protect you." "It protected you," she replied softly. He exhaled. 5 years of pride balanced on a single decision. "I don't want to protect myself from you." Her breath stilled. For Adrien Kong, that sentence was monumental. He had spent years believing love weakened him. That trust cost too much. That vulnerability invited betrayal. But the woman standing in front of him didn't betray him. She defended him. She stood beside him when the world questioned him. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted quietly.
It wasn't polished.
It wasn't rehearsed. It was real. Her expression softened, not because she needed saving, but because he was finally choosing honesty. "You don't have to know everything," she said. "You just have to stop running." He stepped closer. Not forceful. Intentional. "Stay," he said, not as CEO. As Adrien. No command. No strategy. Just a man asking. And this time, he wasn't choosing control. He was choosing her. The billionaire who once vowed never to risk his heart again had survived betrayal. He had survived scandal. But this was the bravest move he had ever made. 6 months later, the skyline of Seoul glowed brighter than usual. Not because the city had changed, but because Adrien Kong had. Kong Global's African expansion had officially launched, and against all early skepticism, the move was already proving visionary. Strategic cybersecurity partnerships in Lagos. Digital infrastructure collaboration in Nairobi. Fintech security frameworks in Johannesburg. What the board once feared was now the company's strongest growth pillar. And the architect of that expansion? Maya Thompson. No longer an intern. No longer a scholarship student trying to prove herself. Now officially appointed. Director of Global Strategy. Earned. Not given. The press conference and launch gala were being held at the prestigious the Shilla Seoul, the same venue where Adrien's ex-fiancée had once publicly aligned herself with his rival. Fate had a sense of irony. The entrance. The ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers. Investors, diplomats, tech executives, and media filled the room. Cameras flashed relentlessly when Adrien entered. Tailored black tuxedo. Controlled expression. Commanding presence. But tonight, something was different. He didn't arrive alone. Maya walked beside him. Deep emerald gown. Natural curls cascading freely. Poised, elegant, powerful. Not clinging to him. Standing with him. The whispers began instantly. She's still here. She led the Africa strategy. That's the student. Adrien heard every murmur. And for once, he didn't silence them. He welcomed them. The announcement. When Adrien stepped onto the stage, the room fell quiet. Behind him, a massive screen displayed Kong Global's global expansion map, Africa illuminated in bold gold. For years, he began, voice calm but resonant, Kong Global expanded through caution. A pause. We avoided markets others considered unpredictable. His gaze briefly found Maya in the crowd. And we nearly avoided our greatest opportunity. The audience shifted attentively. 6 months ago, during a corporate attack meant to destroy this company, someone in this room chose integrity over fear. Strategy over silence. He extended his hand toward her. Maya Thompson. Every camera turned. She hesitated, only slightly, before walking onto the stage beside him. No spotlight could make her more radiant than she already was. Adrien continued, I once believed emotion was a liability. A subtle hush filled the ballroom. I believed trust was expensive. That vulnerability weakened leadership. A beat. I was wrong. The room stilled completely. Maya's breath caught softly. The right partner doesn't weaken your empire, he said clearly. She strengthens it. The statement wasn't corporate. It wasn't coded. It was personal. Cameras exploded in flashes. Some executives looked stunned. But Adrien didn't look away. For years, I built walls to protect myself from betrayal, he admitted. But strength isn't isolation. It's choosing the right person to stand beside you. He turned slightly toward her, not dramatically. Just enough. Maya didn't ask for access to my world. She earned her place in it. The silence that followed was thick with meaning. And then, applause. Slow at first. Then overwhelming.
Not just for the expansion.
For the shift. For the man who had finally stepped out from behind ice. The aftermath. Later that evening, as the ballroom buzzed with celebration, Maya stepped onto the private terrace overlooking the city lights. The air was cool. Familiar. She had stood in this city years ago as a stranger with 2 suitcases and ambition. Now, she stood as a leader shaping global markets. Footsteps approached quietly. Adrien. No cameras. No board. No performance. Regret it, he asked softly. The speech, she teased. The visibility. She turned toward him fully. I didn't come to Seoul to hide. A small smile, genuine, touched his lips. You changed my company, he said. You changed yourself, she corrected gently. He stepped closer. I nearly lost you. You almost did, she admitted. Honesty hung between them. Not fragile. Strong. I don't want to build another empire without you in it, he said quietly. No grand gesture. No ring. Just truth. She studied him for a moment, not testing, not doubting. Confirming. You won't run, she asked. Not anymore. Below them, Seoul shimmered endlessly. For years, he had looked at this skyline alone. Tonight, he didn't. He took her hand. Not possessively. Purposefully. The same man who once vowed never to let a woman close had learned something far more powerful than control. Love was not weakness. The wrong woman betrayed him. The right woman rebuilt him. And as cameras inside the ballroom continued capturing the rise of Kong Global's global dominance, outside, on a quiet terrace above the city lights, a billionaire finally chose something money could never buy.
Trust. Partnership.
Her.